Welcome to chapter 16 of the book of Genesis, Sarah and Hagar. I'll read a little in the Greek and then we'll go through the chapter. Sarah they igini Avram uk etiken avto. In the avti pediski Egyptia e onoma Hagar. And Sarah, the wife of Avram, bore not to him. She was sterile, couldn't bear children at the time, but there was to her a maidservant, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Now, Abram was a rich man, so he had, I don't know if you would call them slave servants, whatever, as a maidservant to Sarah, and she was from Egypt, which was fairly close to the southern part of Canaan. So it wasn't unusual for Egyptians to come into Canaan, maybe looking for work. And Sarah said to Avram, "Behold, the Lord closed me up to not bear." So she's blaming the Lord of her not being able to bear, maybe rightfully so. "Enter then to my maidservant, that I should produce children from her." Now, to us, that sounds kind of strange, that a wife would want the servant to have a child, and telling the servant, or telling the husband to go to have relations with the servant. But maybe things like this happen in other societies than the one I'm familiar with in the United States. But today, a lot of marriage between a husband and a wife is pretty much falling apart in many communities. And there's no marriage. It started back in the 60s, I believe, with the feminist movement. And now we have the repercussions with a lot of unmarried people, children being brought up without two parents. And there was just a shooting in a school down south where a 6-year-old had a gun and shot the teacher. So this is where we are now in the United States. Now, there may be other countries that this would be common, where the wife, for some reason, could give a servant to her husband. In Israel, at the time in the Bible, Jesus, before in the law, it said if a woman wasn't able to bear a child, the husband and the woman, the wife, wasn't able to bear the child, and he died, then the brother of the husband was to have relations with the wife and raise a child. And the Pharisees used this against Jesus to show that there was no resurrection, because they made it to where this woman had 7 brothers and they all had relations with her and they all died and she died. And so in the resurrection, is there going to be, what are they going to be? Where Jesus tells them where they are wrong in their thought process. But here we have, it continues, "Enter then to my maidservant, that I should produce children from her." So she is going to claim the child from the maidservant. Later, this happened with Jacob and his 2 wives and their servants. And Abram obeyed the voice of Sarah. And the wife of Abram, having taken Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, after 10 years of living with Abram in the land of Canaan. Now I guess it would be Hagar living, or both of them living in the land of Canaan for 10 years, and this happened. Then gave her to Abram, her husband, to be to him for a wife. And he entered to Hagar, and she conceived. And she saw that she had one in the womb, and the lady was dishonored before her. Now we have a lot of pronouns here. she conceived. Well, that would be Hagar. Now, who is the she saw that she had one in the womb? Could be Hagar, I believe. She knew she was pregnant, and the lady, Sarah, was dishonored before her. Now, whether she did it on purpose, or Hagar did it on purpose, or whether Sarah made this up and felt this way, we don't know, but continues in 5. And Sarah said to Avram, I'm being wronged from you. I gave my maidservant to your bosom, and seeing that she had one in the womb, I was dishonored before her. And so Sarah's blaming Abram now, even though she's the one that instigated this, because she's feeling dishonored because she doesn't have a child, where the Hagar has a child and is honored more because of that, apparently. And she continues, may God judge between me and you, and Abram. And Abram said to Sarah, well, behold, your maidservant is in your hands. Treat her however it might be pleasing to you. And Sarah maltreated her, and she ran away from her face, and that is, Hagar ran away from Sarah's face. And the angel of the Lord found her upon the spring of water in the wilderness, upon the land in the way of Sur. And I believe this is the first place an angel appears to anyone, and if it is, that's very amazing, because this is a person that's not really tied into Abraham in any way except being a slave girl or a servant girl. But yet God is appearing, or the angel is appearing to her, as the angel also appeared to Mary. In 8 it says, and the angel of the Lord said to her, Hagar, maidservant of Sarah, from what place do you come and where do you go? And she said, I am running away from the face of Sarah, my lady. And the angel of the Lord said to her, well, you return to your lady and be humble under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said to her, in multiplying I will multiply your seed, and it shall not be counted because of the multitude. Now she's blessed the same as Abraham was, with a seed that could not be counted. But there's nothing mentioned as far as with her the belief or the trusting in God. It's just given to her as a gift, and this seed that she will have. As also we have seen with Abraham having the seed, which ends up being with us today, Jesus. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you have one in the womb, and you shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. Now, I would imagine this is the same pregnancy that Sarah saw her having the child. And so you're going to call his name Ishmael, for the Lord heeded your humiliation. So God has looked on somebody else, just like he looked on Abram, but for a different way. He saw her being humiliated. So God looks upon many people that are not just Christians, but people that aren't Christians, and sees the problems and deals with them. And in 12 it continues, this one will be a rugged man, and his hands will be upon all, and the hands of all upon him. And these were the Arabs, many of the people that lived around Israel, the Jews. But the lineage goes through Isaac, Abram's son, who we'll go into here in a chapter or so. And the promise goes through Isaac, not through Ishmael. But the Muslims claim the lineage goes through Ishmael, not Isaac. And he continues, and he will dwell before the face of all his brothers, and Ishmael was a brother to Isaac. And she called the name of the Lord, speaking to her, "You, God, the one looking upon me." And so this puts it, a whole thing in a different perspective, that this would now be the next person that God actually speaks to after it was Abraham, and then I'm sorry, Noah, and then Abraham. So God is, she says, is the one looking upon me. For she said, "For even face to face, I beheld the one appearing to me." So more than an angel. And because of this, she called the well of which I beheld face to face. Behold, it is between Cadiz and Vered. And Hagar bore to Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore to him, Ishmael, as God told Hagar. So now Ishmael is in the line of the Muslims, and I believe that they may have a point there, but they're not in the line of the promise, but they're in the line of Abraham and then Ishmael. But Abram became the father of Isaac, and then Isaac, father of Jacob and the 12 tribes, and then on down, Moses. And Moses was the person that's sort of on the same level that Muhammad would be to the Muslims. But we, as Christians, we have the name of Jesus for our person, that is the one that is from the promise of Abraham down to Jesus, even though he did come through Isaac and the Jews, but yet they crucified him and killed him, and sort of almost like Jesus is no longer part of us. So Jesus chose the nations, it says, which are us that are not Jewish. So now we have God coming in the flesh of Jesus Christ, becoming our deliverer, and the Muslims have Muhammad, but he didn't do anything like Jesus, walking on the water and healing the lepers and raising the dead and so forth. And the Jews have the law with Moses. I think we won out on that one. But as I look at it, the Muslims are really closer to a monotheistic God than the Jews are. A lot of the Jews are. Many of the Jews don't even follow the law. They don't follow the Bible, where the Muslims follow the Quran, not the Bible. But to me, it's interesting that the Muslims have acquired a lot of their information from the Bible. So why don't they see it like we do as the Christians? For some reason, they don't. They hate the Jews. Many of them want to destroy Israel. And it's just a strange situation that we have here. Now, Abram, it says, was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Avram. Next, we'll go into how God deals with this circumstances of Avram and continues on down. And we'll find out in the next video if you join us in chapter 17. I hope you do. Till then, God bless.